Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try not to raise my voice quite so much this time, Mr. Chairman, but don't let a lack of volume or intensity make you think that I don't feel strongly about this issue. I would like to take a moment to explain how the Affordable Housing Enabling Territorial Authorities Act of 2008 was to work. Because I think people are overlooking, and I wonder if anybody in the government benches actually knows how that piece of legislation was to work and what it was to do. The whole point of it was to provide local authorities with the ability, should they so choose, this was not mandatory, but should they so choose, to require of developers that they set aside a portion of any residential housing development, say 10%, for affordable housing. So if a developer was about to build 200 houses, the local authority could say 10% of those houses need to be affordable, within an affordable purchase range for that area. And this was to be done by the local authority. It would have been compulsory for the developer to adhere to that provision, and as a result, out of 200 residential properties being built, 20 would have been available for purchase by low and modest income families. That's not such a big ask. My colleague Stevie Chadwick referred to Queenstown as one of the areas where this was seen as a very desirable thing. I spent some considerable time with the mayor and councillors and staff of Queenstown, of the Queenstown Lakes District Council, talking about affordable housing. Here they were with this grand plan to make Queenstown a tourism mecca, not just in the winter months, when it is, but also in the summer months, when people don't automatically think of Queenstown as a tourist destination, but head for the beach. In order to make it a year-round tourist attraction, what was needed was some workers, some employees who could work in the service and tourism industries that would serve that town and that district. In order to get those people in, there needed to be affordable housing, because the housing in Queenstown cost so much that people on low-wage service occupations didn't have a hope in Hades of renting or buying a residential property, because along with purchase prices, ratchet rents. As purchase prices go up, so do rents. Council rates go up, landlords require more in the way of rents to cover the rate increases that are on the rateable value of the land. As that increases, so rents increase. And so in Queenstown, as in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and my town where I live of Nelson, with Queenstown were the 5 top most expensive cities and towns to buy a first house in New Zealand. So property prices were the most expensive in those 5 areas of New Zealand. And they still are. Tauranga is beginning to catch up. I think it might be number 6 now. But certainly those 5 areas still remain the most expensive areas in which to buy a house. And so making available to local authorities another tool in their toolkit, one that went alongside the waiving of development levies. They could waive development levies in order to get these properties built, Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Mary Ann Street.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. That then could have provided housing for workers who were needed for the kind of growth that was being anticipated in Queenstown. The same is true of Nelson. And I spent time with both the Mayor and councillors of Nelson and the Mayor of Tasman District, because they adjoin and they are, the boundary goes down the middle of Champion Road in Nelson. And so they are both affected by similar movements and industrial growth and population development and so on. But in Richmond, in the Nelson electorate, there is great hope and plans for industry development, for value to be added to the wonderful primary produce that happens in the Richmond, the Nelson and Tasman areas. And with industrial growth goes jobs. And with jobs come workers. And with workers come their families. And if the Mayor of Tasman District Council wanted that growth, that industrial growth that they were planning and are continuing to plan for in the lower Queen Street part of Richmond, then affordable housing suddenly becomes critical, because the rents in the Nelson area, including Richmond, are exorbitant, and they are very difficult for families, young families, to live on. And so all of this was part of a plan. And it's clear, it's as clear as day, that in the repeal of this modest provision, which I never claimed, Mr Chair, as Minister of Housing, would fix the affordable housing problem, but it was one mechanism for addressing it. It is clear that in the repeal of this legislation, the government is exposed again as having no plan for economic growth, no plan to assist families into their first homes, no plan to increase jobs, no plan to upskill young people and introduce them to trades and develop those skills that could have been encouraged by rescuing the building and construction industry through a method of this kind. The whole purpose of being in government is to use the leverage of government for the advantage of citizens. That is the whole purpose of being in government. If this government cannot see it, and the only citizens they're interested in advantaging is that narrow elite of their mates who donate to the National Party, then let's see it for what it is. Let's see this ignorant bill for what it is, with a Minister of Housing who has had no ideas about how to address housing affordability, who, Mr Chairman, I suspect it must be masquerading as an idiot, because surely we can't have a Cabinet Minister who is an idiot. So this man, Phil Heatley, masquerades as an idiot because everything he has done diminishes opportunities for New Zealand families to own their own home. It diminishes opportunities for investment in the building and construction industry, which could generate jobs, which could encourage apprenticeships, which could train up and provide a future for young people. But no, every turn this Minister of Housing takes leads us in exactly the opposite direction. It negates opportunities. It stifles job creation. It limits people's possibilities. And that is something a government should never be doing. Should never be doing. And that is what the inclusion of the repeal of this little bill, which is optional. I toyed with the idea, Mr Chairman, of it being